series that started just before COVID. Quickly became Zoom, obviously, and then about a year and a half ago we started being in person. So it's really wonderful to be in a members location outside of our Rockland offices. But it's also just a wonderful series where we try to elevate women across the region. So thank you all for being here. I do want to thank our sponsors, many of whom are here. Compton is our lead sponsor this year. So if someone could raise their hand over Compton, thank you. And our support sponsors, Ailey, Cardinal Cushing, if you want to give a wave. Friendship Home, of course, and George Washington Toma. George and Lindsay are here. Enbridge, Gibbs Software Solutions, obviously Denver, Christina, Tammy. Remax Boston, Leone Marketing Solutions, Tiny & Sons, Autoblast, and PR First. Nicole, give a wave. Just a couple housekeeping. Bathrooms are down the hall. You are being recorded. We keep these on our website so people can listen to them as podcasts. It's kind of a nice touch through our YouTube channel. So I want to ask Andrea to give a little introduction to the Friendship Home, and thank you again for having us.
Yes, well, thank you for being here. Good morning, and welcome to Friendship Home. So we are celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. We're very excited about that. Thank you, yes, very excited. So Friendship Home provides day and respite services to adults with developmental disabilities. We have about 70 folks downstairs right now. You'd never know it. But our day program is in operation. So if you do hear things, there's lots of activity actually taking place in the building right now. But we were founded 25 years ago by two moms that now have an adult child with a developmental disability. They recognized two things very early on. One, they needed help, which kind of created this idea of short-term overnight respite. This is one wing. We have another wing right on the other side of this building that completely mirrors this. And then what they also recognized is that they needed help. And so that's part of the whole respite component. But we have a social rec and a day program component where we're providing opportunities for socialization, developing friendships. And Wilma and Joan recognized early on that their children would thrive in those type of situations. And 25 years ago, no one on the South Shore was really facilitating those type of opportunities that they really wanted to create for their children. So they took it upon themselves and created Friendship Club that started at someone's kitchen table. And Friendship Club is still in existence now 25 years later. It happens on Thursday nights, but here at Friendship Home. And a lot of our original participants are still attending clubs. So we're creating really lifelong friendships for folks and opportunities for folks to engage and feel a level of acceptance and have fun. We have lots of fun here at Friendship Home. A lot of our participants joke that what happens at Friendship Home stays at Friendship Home. Like, okay, we're not having cake parties here, but you are in one of our respite wings where we host. This is the ladies' side, and then we have a men's side. So we host up to 10 guests 7 days a week. And they come and get a break from their parents, where they typically live at home with their families or a caregiver. And everyone needs a break from one another every once in a while. My children drive me nuts. And they enjoy having a break from me as well. It's really like the same kind of concept. So folks come here and, they self-determine how they want their day to be. So some of our guests come, and the one thing they want to do while they're with us is get their hair cut. So we take them to go get their hair cut. Otherwise, they're going to dinner, having fun, different types of activities. So it's a really fun, robust organization. It's more of a boutique type of organization, though. We're quite small. We're about a $5 million operating budget annually. We serve about 275 individuals and families on the South Shore. And our day program, just really quickly, it's a community-based day supports program as well as employment services. So we do some job carving with local employers to create opportunities for our folks to work in the community. If you'd like to know anything else about Friendship Home, I'm available at any time. But we're thrilled that you're here and that you get to experience this type of environment where we really try to create a home away from home for our folks. And we work really hard to maintain the facility so that people really feel like they're in their home away from home. So Oh, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So now it seems a little awkward to introduce you to Andrea.
Oh.
I'm going to introduce Andrea, and Andrea will introduce Tammy, but Andrea Mansfield has been the president and executive director at Friendship Home for the past 7 years. She has served on the Chamber Board of Directors for the past 4 years. She's a former member of the Mansfield Education Foundation and currently a corporator of Mountain One Bank. Andrea has deep roots on the South Shore, growing up in Braintree and now raising her family in Mansfield. She has 2 boys, ages 13 and 9. Thank you again for having us.
Thank you. I was pulling in hot this morning trying to get them off to school. I don't know if anyone else had that experience this morning, but it's my pleasure to introduce Tammy Lynch. I've gotten to know Tammy a little bit over the last couple of weeks, and this is going to be a really fun conversation. I think you have an extremely interesting background that I can't wait for you to share with everyone. But Tammy is the executive director at the Atlantic Symphony Orchestra. Tammy joined the ASO as executive director in May 2023 after over a decade of leadership at performing arts organizations. Prior to ASO, she served as general manager for Lexington Symphony in Lexington, Mass., where she helped introduce new diversity, equity, and inclusion systems and a more robust focus on community outreach. This focus on partnership and collaboration underpins her work with ASO, finding new ways to impact and be useful within the community. This is particularly important as schools grapple with a decline in public music education, making a focus on ASO's partnership in music education program a necessity. Tammy worked as director of front of the house management for 6 years at Boston Symphony Orchestra, creating welcoming environments for audience members at Symphony Hall and Tanglewood Shed, Azawa Hall, and Lind Center. She also previously served as managing director at Juventus New Music Ensemble. Earlier in her career, she worked in political communications in Boston, Washington, D.C., Russia, and Ukraine. We're going to talk about that. She holds a doctor in philosophy from Boston University.
Yeah, you don't need to.
She's very smart. She has a Master of Science and a bachelor degree, again, from Ithaca. So welcome, Tammy.
Thank you. Welcome. Thanks for having me.
So I just gave a really high-level introduction, but can you tell us just a little bit more detail about your career? And
yeah, it's been very windy. At the time, I constantly questioned myself, am I making the right decisions? Oh my gosh, where is this going to lead? And I look back now and I realize everywhere I've been, everything I've done has really gotten me to a terrific point right now where it helps me decide and make the decisions I need to make for ASO. But my first real career, I've done a billion different things, but my first real career was with the National Democratic Institute for International Affairs, working on political party strengthening, democracy building, and media training in the area that used to be called the former Soviet Union. So I traveled a lot in Russia for a while until it became untenable and dangerous and not somewhere where Americans really wanted to spend a lot of time, and until it became clear that any Russians that worked with us were going to be targeted. And so when you see your staff sort of picked up and arrested and them banging on your staff's door in the middle of the night, and see they're coming to you and they're saying, give us the names of all your employees so we know who's working with you, we sort of had to pull back from Russia. That increased our work in Ukraine, which is an entirely different and absolutely wonderful country, filled with people who actually wanted to build a democracy, understood what it meant, wanted to tackle corruption, and were extremely thankful for whatever help anybody could give them. So I absolutely loved my time in Ukraine, but as we've sort of seen reported in the news, Russia did not love Ukraine moving toward the West and started putting a lot of pressure, again, on politicians who were working with us. So it became very ugly and very difficult, and opposition leaders and media people started getting killed. And so I sort of said to myself, do I really want all this ugliness in my life all the time? And I started, and when I was in college, I had a theater minor. I studied music growing up. I did musical theater. I studied the flute, the piano. Don't ask me to play, trust me. And I said, wouldn't I really rather have beauty or something joyous, something uplifting, something that really creates beauty as opposed to constantly fighting against ugliness? And so I came home, and just almost by chance, I met I think she was the CEO at the time of Boston Symphony, and started working with them. And from there, it's been a joyous journey.
Yeah, really interesting. So how have all of your career experience really shaped your leadership style now, especially thinking back upon all of your time and political experience while you were living in Russia and Ukraine?
Well, I mean, it certainly does create perspective.
Yeah.
It helps me understand people better. It helps me be patient, because once you have to deal with dangerous things and really life-threatening situations that you have to make decisions about, it really does allow you to step back and say, okay, let's keep everything in perspective, and let's focus on understanding other people and creating something positive. Mm-hmm. So I sort of came out of everything, I think, focused on collaboration and teamwork and creating a positive, uplifting environment, because that's what I felt I wanted. Making sure that the team feels valued, using positive techniques to try to get things accomplished, and just, I think, making sure that everyone is in the same boat, rowing in the same direction, but that they want to be in the boat and want to be rowing, and understanding that they're all going to need different motivations to want to get in the boat. So I guess I just learned a little bit more about how to understand and work with people.
Yeah, definitely. So how do you kind of identify different motivating factors for the staff that you're
A lot of talking.
Yeah.
A lot of talking. I always tell my staff, look, I need to know if you have a problem, because then we can fix it. I don't have ESP. I know I'm brilliant, but I can't read your mind. Yep. So if you're unhappy about something, if you're unhappy about, if you're having a problem at home even, if you need some time, if you need to decompress, I need you to be ready, willing, and able to be here. So talk to me. And I go out, I take staff out to coffee, we just, just in a very laid-back way, we just talk. So I can get some idea of the temperature of what's happening. Usually there's a reason when somebody starts making a mistake or seems disgruntled, or usually there's a reason. You just have to find it and be patient enough to find it. And, I do have a bit of Irish in me. So I've worked my whole career to just stay calm. So, I can get, I sort of start to go, geez, what the heck? Okay, stop, and focus on the reasons why. And sure, there are going to be people that aren't going to work out. Yeah, I had 100 employees, part-time employees at the BSO. But for the most part, if people feel they're listening to you and you value them, and you ask them what's wrong, how can we support you?
Right.
They will respond.
Right. If you're authentically interested in people.
Exactly. I mean, it can't be, it can't be just, I know I have to pretend that I care what you think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And authentically appreciate them too, like acknowledge really something specific that they've
yes.
done.
I mean, I have some folks that I work with, every little thing they do that's positive, I really praise.
Yeah.
Because I can tell that they're a little more anxious about their work. And then I have others that, I do praise, but I don't have to worry about it so much.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about sort of the staffing within your sphere. I know within the nonprofit sector, specifically direct service, there's a bit of a there is a staffing crisis. Mm-hmm. Are you guys facing anything like that now, or are you well staffed? How does that look?
Well, we have essentially a small full-time staff.
Okay.
Most of our staffing is orchestra members.
Right.
And weirdly, yes, we're having more difficulty there because after the pandemic, a whole bunch of musicians left the area or went to other careers because the arts community really has not fully ever recovered from the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So that is an issue. Thankfully, we live in an area full of conservatories that are putting people out. We did have a couple of openings recently, and I thought, oh no, how are we going to fill them?
Yeah.
But luckily, I was happily surprised. We got some good applications, and again, it's you have to manage to the people. So I said, look, we're not going to get everything we want because we live in a really tough hiring environment, but let's get most of it and then go from there. And so I think it's worked out.
Great. So you are approaching your 1-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Well, actually May. It is May, right? You joined. Congratulations.
Well, yeah, thank you.
So as, over the past year, have there been experiences or situations that you had to overcome that you were not expecting to come up against during your first year?
Well, the orchestra industry sort of going off a cliff after the pandemic is a little bit more than I anticipated. Yeah. But I do feel extremely lucky to be in the South Shore, which has an enormous support for arts and culture. A lot more, certainly than a lot of the country, but also other parts of Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. So thankfully, whereas a lot of orchestras have seen their ticket revenues go down as much as 60%.
Wow.
We have not. It has not remained completely level, but it's pretty close. So, I mean, that's a really good sign for the health of the arts and culture community in the South Shore, mm-hmm. because there are also other orchestras around here. Mm-hmm. So that's good. But we have seen the individual donations and things like that be affected by inflation in the economy. So we've had to find new ways to reach people. And the orchestra industry in general is going through a lot of changes regarding how to better reflect the communities in which the orchestras exist. Mm. When the audience comes in the doors, they want to look on the stage and they want to see, oh boy, there's someone there that looks like me. There's someone there that I relate to. And that has been a failing of orchestras. And there's been this sort of elitist mentality, even orchestras that weren't necessarily elite were seen that way. So diversifying who's on the stage, diversifying who's leading. There is a shameful lack of female leadership among the largest orchestras in our country, far below the demographics of the areas that they're in. There's a huge lack of representation of women in certain instruments in the country and hiring of them. So there's still a long way to go. I think in the last couple of years, the industry itself has been grappling with it. Part of what ASO is doing is more outreach. I mean, we're We are seeing music decline in schools, so we're trying to fill that gap a little bit with more robust programs to bring people in, bring kids in, get our musicians to the schools, all of that. Go out into the community for more community concerts where we interact with the audience. All those kinds of things can really make a difference and show the people of the community that we are of the community. And I think that's really vital.
So all of that makes sense. So is that why, are all of those components really the reason behind why your ticket sales have been kind of insulated and haven't seen the decline of others because of all of these activities that you've put into place?
Well, it's possible, and that's an issue we have to figure out.
Yeah.
That's what we're working on. But yes, historically, Atlantic Symphony Orchestra has been a smaller regional orchestra that has had community ties and has always done smaller community concerts. It's just a matter now we want to do more of them and have more community ties and really make a difference, by doing what we can to support other organizations also, not just, it can't be a one-way street.
Right.
We have to be a productive and supportive community member.
Right. Are there other strategic ideas that you have to continue with the sort of ongoing success of the ASO? Are there other areas that you're working on, or?
Yeah, our two major programs are increasing the music education program and actually music accessibility. Because let's face it, there are people that can't afford the tickets. We have to make sure we can get those people, make sure they feel welcome to come if they want to come. And also, we have to make sure that kids are exposed to instruments. We know from recent research that music itself has an amazingly positive impact on the brain, brain synapses and brain connections. And when they do MRIs of students listening to music, the whole brain lights up. And that's not common for a lot of activities like reading, doing math. All of these things are important, but music, especially if you're sitting at a concert, you're watching, you're feeling music come over you, you're hearing different things, you're maybe reading in the program. So all these things are coming together and your brain is active. And so we know from NIH research that's really important. And the NIH is trying to say to schools, don't get rid of this because this will make a difference in your kids' growth. But, towns need to grapple with budget cuts. We know that. So if we can be useful in providing access, like, for example, for the first time ever, we're doing a concert on June 8th at Weir River Farm with the trustees of reservations. Yeah. And there'll be an instrument petting zoo from the South Shore Conservatory where, kids can see, miniature instruments, and members of the ASO will be demonstrating the sounds individual instruments play and playing Carnival of the Animals. And so the instrument petting zoo will be beside the animal petting zoo. And the idea is to show that people can work solo and they can also work together to make a really beautiful sound. And if we all work together, we can help the animals, we can help the planet, and all of this. So that's what, that's one of the things we're doing. Because I've seen it when kids come and it's their first experience and they're just like, the sound starts and they're just, because it's a big sound. Yeah. And they've never heard it. So it's inspiring and it's fun and it's beautiful, and we're just trying to do as much as we can to provide access. And also for older individuals, we know that it makes a big difference. So access in that regard also.
So funding must be something that you grapple with.
Constantly on a daily basis. Yeah. Like a lot of people.
Yes. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, yes. It's been a challenge this year. Just by necessity, we've had to expand. Everything costs more. We are very proud that our orchestra is unionized, and we have very specific pay schedule, and we have to meet those schedules. We can have up to 50 people on the stage at one time, so imagine. So yes, it's been difficult this year as businesses and individuals grapple with their own finances. There's grants, the Massachusetts Cultural Council is doing its best. The state actually has increased its funding for arts, which is great. In general, the South Shore is very supportive, but there's a lot of need in a lot of sectors. We have hungry people who need to eat. We have unhoused people. So that's one of the reasons we need to make our case as to why we're important. And that's something that I've really focused on doing, because I absolutely, authentically believe that music is vital to our community. People sit together. They share the same experience away from screens. That doesn't happen as much as it could nowadays. People are feeling isolated. Well, you don't have to be isolated. Come to an event, So I really feel we can make a valid case, a really powerful case. It's just a matter of doing it. And being my first year, we're just getting ramped up.
So how is if you look at it like in a pie chart, so which percentage is ticket sales, which percentage is like grants, which percentage is like fundraising, how does that break down? So
we have been very lucky that about 40 to 50% is ticket sales.
Wow.
That's high for an orchestra, and really it's not sustainable, honestly. It should be 70-30. It should be 70% donations, grants, 30% ticket sales. But 60-40 is okay. It's the majority of our funding is small individual donations with a few larger donations and ticket sales and some very generous grants.
Right. So just thinking back on sort of your overall journey to where you are in the past year, when you sort of reflect on your own personal success or your professional success, how do you think about that, or how are you defining that? What does that mean to you?
I think having a balanced life matters to me. You could make an argument in some people's eyes that working at the BSO and directing this huge department would be a bigger success. I know one of my grandparents said that.
Well, then we know their definition.
But you know what? I think it's having a full life with family, friends, interests that are outside of your work, if you can fit them in, and you have to work hard. I mean, I've tried really hard to fit them in, and really being kind to yourself at work, understanding, work your hardest, do your best, produce what you can, but understand that you're human. So I think finding not so much contentment, but a form of contentment with who you are as a person, and feeling that your life is a full-rounded experience. That's success to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I also think some of that comes through experience, and also for myself, even age. So my definition of success was 5 years ago was very different than my definition of success now.
Mine also, yes.
And I think lots of young women kind of need to understand that you go through different phases of what you consider success. We're all at a young age, we're preached to that, you can have it all. You can have that corner office, and you can still, take your kids to hockey at night. But no one talks about like the exhaustion that comes along with trying to do all that, right?
Yep.
And half the time you're just trying to keep your head above water. So, like, talk a little bit about how you've created your own space to where, like, you do feel like you have what you want or need.
Right. So, I made a decision younger not to have children. I was doing a lot of traveling, and really, it just wasn't something that I thought was for me.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you something. That's not a decision that goes over well in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a family where my father grew up with essentially 11 brothers and sisters, although some were cousins. My mother 4. So, and I mean I have gazillion cousins. But yeah, it really wasn't for me. But yet I have a very full life. Mm-hmm. I spend a lot of time with and I'm very close to my niece and nephew. Have a lot of activities. I spent a lot of time when I was younger working all the time.
Mm-hmm.
When I was traveling, I was working, really 24 hours. Mm-hmm. And at one point, I remember I got bronchitis on the verge of pneumonia, and I was calling Washington, and I'm coughing, and they're like, Tammy, you need to go to the doctor, do something. I don't have time, I don't have time. But eventually I did. But that was my mentality.
Yeah.
And I guess I just worked myself to the point where I said, what am I doing?
Right.
What is in my life except for this? And sort of stepped back and took a look, and I hope most women or most people come to a point where they say, okay, what do I want?
Right.
And so I did that. I stepped back and I said, no, this is not what I want. Understanding, I'm going to make less money, but that's okay. Mm-hmm. I'm at the point where that's fine. Mm-hmm. I would like to be able to, pay my rent. Mm-hmm. Eating is good.
Yeah.
But I don't need the mansion. I'm gonna. When I was younger, I used to say, I'm gonna be a millionaire by the time I'm 25, and I'm gonna have a mansion. It's like, oh my God, what was I thinking?
Who's gonna clean that mansion?
I know. But yeah, and I also, it sounds corny, but I also think if you kind of have a kind life and you have it's not. When you look on the television and you meet some people and they just seem unhappy and grumpy, and I don't want to do that. Right. I don't want to wake up and just have it be in a terrible mood. And I tell my staff, I want you to wake up and want to come to work or want to go to your room next door and work.
Right.
So that's really important.
Yeah. I think that conversation that people need to have a little bit more frequently is about it's okay to not want to have children. Mm-hmm. And I think we've probably all gone through, I've even said it even after having children, that I love you, but I hate you at the same time. Love-hate relationship. But there are different phases in your career, too, that people can decide it's not the right time.
Right.
And that's perfectly acceptable. And I don't think all women kind of support each other that way, but it just needs to be kind of more normalized at the same time.
Right. And as long as you sort of check in with yourself every now and then, okay, is this what I want? Yeah, it is.
Right.
So.
Right. So, what are some of throughout your experience then, what have been some of the roadblocks that you've faced in your career on different trajectories? Whether it was the upward trajectory or even when you decided to, shift your career or leave the BSO and come to the ASO, like what barriers did you face or?
Well, there is just in general, there's this, everyone I'm sure knows about this sort of phenomenon where women are very welcomed in organizations as long as it doesn't look like they're going to have real power. And you know, it's not a broad brush. It's not everybody, but there is that, and you're not always sure if the person that was hired 2 years after you and doesn't seem to have half as many skills gets promoted because of that or what. I've gone through situations where I've been called not hysterical, but you know, I've sort of said, this is a problem. This is a problem.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I could be. I suppose I can be still a squeaky wheel. And that's not necessarily always invited. So that's been a problem for me. I had a meeting at another place, not the BSO, and there were just some issues in this meeting. And I answered a question, and I got reprimanded privately after. Why? I want you to just sit there. Just sit there because, you know, no, you're not going along with the program. I said, okay. So I won't have opinions, I guess. I don't know. But everyone else in the meeting was a man. You know, I've been called darling, honey, the whole thing. I had to work with security agents at BSO, and oh my God, they would like pat me. We've got it. Really? It doesn't seem like you do. So there's that. Yeah. But I would say that roadblocks for me were me, you know, deciding where I wanted to be and who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do and how I wanted to live my life and whether what I was doing was what I wanted to, you know, was fulfilling to me. Yeah. I mean, more than anything.
Yeah. So just going back to one of your previous comments, so I think women often, when they express any type of emotion, unless it's happiness, it's typically frowned upon in a work environment. You know, I think we're supposed to be viewed as, you know, even-keeled, maintaining our composure. So when having a voice, selectively having a voice at times. So how have you sort of overcome that?
Well, in a way, I've sort of adjusted to it because I realized that I needed to be really smart about when I spoke up, how I spoke up, what expressions I made, what emotions I conveyed, and find a way to express myself without creating defensiveness, which you know, happens with women being loud.
Yeah. Did you have a mentor or somebody that you sort of leaned on when you were during these different phases of your career?
Well, my boss at the BSO especially, I've had a succession of amazing female bosses. My boss at National Democratic Institute was the director of the Russia program, was amazing and a wonderful mentor. My boss at the BSO, Kim Nolte, who just was appointed the CEO of LA Philharmonic, which is a huge breakthrough for women. She really truly was, and she stated that one of her purposes was to uplift women at the organization, and she did. Her door was always open, and I would sit there and we would just talk, and she was wonderful. So she really, especially Kim, made a difference in how I tackle problems, I think. Yeah. And work with staff and team members.
So what are some of the biggest takeaways for you now after a year at the ASO based on some previous experience to kind of where you're sitting in this chair right now? What advice would you give to the room on career development or anything really?
I would say stop doubting yourself. Stop talking negatively to yourself. I think my career was negatively impacted, the trajectory to leadership was negatively impacted by the fact that I kept telling myself that I probably couldn't do it, or it was too much for me, or I would fail. So believe in yourself and know that everybody thinks that. Everybody, women and men, and just try. Because, I guarantee that your negative talk about yourself is way more negative than everyone around you. Mm-hmm. And that's what I discovered and finally had to accept. And once I did that, things got a heck of a lot easier. Yeah. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to fail at things. Things are going to go wrong. It doesn't mean I'm a failure. It doesn't mean I'm awful. It's just something that happened. So now we need to take the next step to make it better. That's all.
Right.
Just believe in yourself.
And take things a little less personally.
Yeah. Just, the world does not revolve around you totally.
My world.
But, things will happen, and a lot of times it's not because of you. But sometimes you might make a mistake. That's okay.
It's true.
Everybody makes bloopers.
Yeah.
That it's not the mistake. It's what you do for the next step after the mistake.
Right.
So, once I accepted that, true, I want to be perfect, but I'm never going to be.
Right.
So I better start figuring out how to deal with mistakes and confusion and all of that, and accept that there are some things I'm really good at, and I should accept that. There are some things I'm not the best at. I should accept that, and just go forward and do my best and go for it. That made a big difference.
Yeah. I think that ties into when you're a successful leader as well, when you can kind of admit your flaws.
Yes.
And be comfortable with them, and sit in a room and be like, I'm not the smartest person in this room.
Yeah.
That's why everyone else is in this room with me.
That's right. That's right.
And I think that is sometimes when you want to be on the trajectory of becoming a leader, you definitely, that self-doubt comes up, and you're always pushing yourself to be the best.
Right.
When actually sometimes you need to just sit back and be comfortable with where you are. And authentic with people, and saying, I think your decision far exceeds even the path that I was going down. And I think that cultivates strong relationships for a true leader to be able to step up. And
one thing that's really important is to give people credit.
Mm-hmm.
If they did something and you didn't do it, give them credit. Mm-hmm. I think it's easy to be, especially when you're younger and you're trying to make it, to be defensive when someone else is doing a really good job.
Yeah.
And you want to be the one that people are, praising.
Right.
And so that's a very negative emotion.
Yeah.
But I think if you sort of get to a point where you say, okay, if everyone on the team does a great job, that means our team is doing a spectacular job. So as a leader, if someone succeeds, well, hey, I hired him.
Yeah. We're smart enough to make that decision.
No, but you know what I mean. Everyone should get credit. That's one thing that my boss at BSO said once. I came up with something. I said, oh, thank you for telling the committee that it was my idea. She said, well, it looks good for me. Why wouldn't I do that? I said, oh, okay.
Right.
But, everyone... It's really important as a leader to understand that the more you uplift others, the more things will work. Mm-hmm. And everyone is trying to improve their situation in life, and being able to help them do that, in addition to doing the work we're doing at our organizations, is really important.
Yeah.
So because it's the same thing, the fulfilled life. I think everyone has a right to it, and not just, I'm not the only one on the team that deserves to have a well-rounded life.
Right,
so.
right. Well, I've enjoyed our conversation, but I want to let other people kind of chime in and ask a question or two. Uh-oh. I can keep asking. But does anyone have a... The gentleman in the back, Paul, is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, Paul.
I just wanted to, I don't have a question, we just have a comment. I want to publicly thank him for all she's done over the past year for the ASL. A year ago, we sent the kite up in the air saying that we needed help. Mary Poppins floating down with a huge bag full of ideas, and she's amazing. She's like Mary. People may get rubbed the wrong way, but she's very confident in everything she does, and she has a great way of solving problems. Snap of a finger in the bag, pull out a trick. She's done an amazing job over the past year. And I think your biggest talent is keeping your eyes focused on the future, and she doesn't get bogged down. She handles all the stuff that has to be done, but she's continuously steering the boat. She is, as Jim Kim is our music director and conductor, she's the conductor of the whole organization, and she conducts people properly, and she conducts the audience. She's such a great asset.
Thank you, Paul. Paul is our board president. You would never tell, I'm sure.
How nice to have such a cheerleader.
I know, right? It's a great board. It really is. Great organization. Very supportive.
Tammy, bringing your past experience as an international spy into this, will have worked in kind of repressive societies and coming over here, doing the work you're doing. What's the connection between the old work and how do you stay involved in the international stuff?
I still have a lot of friends, either overseas or in the academic world. Certainly, I'm keeping track of what's happening in Ukraine. I'm keeping track as much as I can. I can't find several people, but so certainly I'm doing it that way. The connection is I think more understanding the importance of working together, kindness, support, and I guess just caring for one another. The one overriding thing that I came out of Russia with was how horribly cruel it was at every level. People on the street, people in the government. It was just an incredibly cruel place. Now, I was an American working for a, political focused organization, but, and it's not the people's fault. They have been left with essentially survival of the fittest. I mean, it really truly is survival of the fittest. They don't even, down to the point where they don't even have health care. We would drive through places where it was muddy dirt roads and people would pass us in horse and buggies and there was no indoor plumbing or running water, and this was a huge portion of the country. So people aren't, cheery and, smiling all the time. But the way that it got that way was that the people allowed it. So I think one of the most important things is taking control of your own life, of your circumstances, standing up for your circumstances, and that translates to work environments, almost directly. You need to speak up for yourself, stand up for yourself, and don't let people who have a certain amount of power over you take away what we have.
Through fear and repression.
Yeah, and the idea that there is the difference in Russia and most of the U.S. at this point, although not all of it anymore. The difference is in Russia, there's this old parable thing that we learned. In Russia, you have two neighbors. One of them does something and he gets 2 cows, and the other neighbor has 1 cow. And the neighbor with 1 cow is really mad that the neighbor has 2 cows, so he goes over and he kills the cows. So that neighbor's then mad. So he goes over and he kills the other cow. Now they have no milk. Now they have, no way to make any money because they can't sell milk, but they're both really happy because they've killed each other's cows.
Yeah.
And that's Russia. And in the U.S., how it has been and how hopefully it is in a lot of places still is you have 2 cows, we have 1 cow. Maybe we can get 2 cows. And that's the difference in the mentality. So maybe we can get 2 cows is the mentality we need to succeed also in the work that we're doing.
That was a good question, Peter. I like how you called her a spy. Denver.
Well, I just want to say, as a board member of the ASO, I'm very happy that you're leading this and thank you for all the work that you're doing. I just want to say that.
Thank you. And thank you for sponsoring this, Denver, and for being a board member.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions?
Anyone want to say any more good things about me?
Yeah.
How's the business community treating the ASO in the first year compared to other areas?
I would say that, considering everything well, we have some long-term partners, the Tefang Auto Group, the George Tomov just bought an ad in our program, and we were like, yay! South Shore Bank does been a long-term supporter. So we do have a lot of that. Is it enough? No, but it's my first year, and so I've just started to get to know everyone. And as I said, we've got to make the case. So I am setting about doing that.
Lindsay, you had a question.
I just wanted to thank you for your candor, especially talking about the internal challenges and self-doubt, and seeing all of the amazing things that you've done from the outside, because I think we can all identify with that, what goes on behind our eyes and between our ears.
Yep.
So thank you so much.
Thank
for
you.
Sharing that part of your journey. So I, for one, teared up. So thank you.
Oh. Well, I still do it. I still say stop it.
Yeah. Imposter syndrome.
That's what it is.
Yes, it is something. It is.
They're going to figure out that I'm really bad at that.
Yes. They never do, though.
Right. Never happens.
Oh. Well, this was delightful. Thank you, Tammy, for everything.
Thank you, Andrea.
Yes, it was wonderful. And thank you all for coming. Feel free, yes. Now, everyone go on and believe in yourself. It's going to be a great day.
Our next bill is June 6th. That's the Chamber's office with Mayor Erin Roy.
Oh, great. Awesome.
Well, that'd be fun.
Yeah.